ladies and gentlemen. It's a privilege and a pleasure to be part of the charcha and to share the department's activities and our perspective on livelihoods for the marginalized community. Thank you to the organizers and to the DBS Foundation for co-hosting this session. Yesterday, our secretary, Shri Amit Yadav, in his keynote address, quoted Dr. Ambedkar that the measure of any society is how it treats its most vulnerable. The subject is at the very heart of our ministry's work. The mandate of the Department of Social Justice and Empowerment is to work for the welfare of the marginalized communities, which include communities which have historically faced exclusion, social, economic, and institutional exclusion, the scheduled castes, the OBCs, persons with disabilities, sanitation workers, waste pickers, transgender persons, elderly citizens, victims of drug abuse, beggars, denotified tribes, each facing unique challenges that require targeted responses. Each of these communities have their own story of struggle, challenges, and aspirations. Our responsibilities ensure that the government systems not only support them, but also empower them to live with dignity and independence. We have to understand the challenge, the systemic barriers that they face. These communities face deep-rooted structural barriers, social stigma and discrimination, occupational hazards, such as the sanitation workers and the waste pickers, which lead to short lifespans and health issues. Economic vulnerability remains widespread, as most work in the informal sector have low and irregular incomes. Also, limited access to formal credit keeps many dependent on exploitative informal lenders. Inadequate systems and social support leaves the elderly, persons with disabilities, and victims of substance abuse without proper care systems. How then do we develop and design systems which help create livelihoods for these low-income communities? Yesterday, the panel which our department co-hosted, From Welfare to Empowerment, Building Future-Ready Systems, the words which echoed were community, participation, ownership, the power of working together, from dependent to enablers, from deprivation to self-respect and dignity. There was echo of the requirement, the need for capacity building, the requirement for developing and building skills, how to design systems for transformation, to adopt a transformative approach to welfare empowerment. How do we leverage markets, digital tools, the power of the internet, which also helps to correct information asymmetry, the power of collaborations. There's also a recognition that there's a need to do much more to ensure access to legal aid for these communities. The department adopts a multi-pronged approach for supporting sustainable livelihoods for marginalized communities. The Department of Social Justice and Empowerment also implements the Pradhan Mantri Anusuchit Jati Abhyuday Yojana, in which one of the components is the grant and aid, in which we give grants and as a part of the subvention towards the loan, and also help them help the marginalized communities from the SC community to start activities for income generation, for livelihood, for sustainable income. Through the National Finance Development Corporations, the National Scheduled Caste Finance Development Corporation, the National Backward Classes Finance Development Corporation, and the National Safai Karamcharis Finance Corporation, they operate on a framework of providing concessional finance for income generation and self-employment activities. Since the inception, over 3,000 crore rupees has been infused in equity support, enabling cumulative loan disbursements exceeding 17,000 crore and over 50 lakh beneficiaries across the country. The sustainable lending model rests on the four pillars of concessional credit, interest subvention, skill development, and market linkage. Through direct concessional lending, the FDCs also support the establishment of viable micro and small enterprise. So recently, the department has also launched the Tulip Initiative, which offer marketing platforms and exhibition opportunities to traditional artisans and craftsmen for greater visibility and income generation. Collectively, these interventions have advanced financial inclusion, reduced dependence on informal lending, and empowered marginalized communities to build resilient and self sustaining livelihoods. However, just like yesterday in the panel, one of the speakers, Preeta, had mentioned that there is a need of having a results framework for all these interventions, for all these activities of the government also. So, apart from these interventions, we also have specific interventions for specific communities, like the SMILE initiative, which is a short form for support of marginalized individuals for livelihood and enterprise for beggars as well as for transgenders. Through these interventions and through partnerships with NGOs, with the cities, municipal corporations, and NGOs, we carry out identification survey, identification, rescue, rehabilitation, and also through providing them shelters and skilling. The children are then streamed into education activities. And we have had uh, amazing results, in fact, in some of the interventions, especially in South India, where the NGOs, the community, the municipal corporations, and the industry work together. So we've had wonderful results. The same for the transgenders through the SMILE intervention for the transgender, along with providing shelters through Garima Grahas, interventions to train them in income generation activities, entrepreneurship development training and skilling. I think around 725 have already received training, and around 1800 are supposed to be trained this year. Though, of course, it's still a very, very small intervention considering the numbers that are needed to be done. The Smile Beggary scheme is now in 180 cities. More than 25,000 individuals have been identified, and more than 7,600 people have been rehabilitated through skilling and gainful employment. Apart from this, another intervention that we have is the SEED scheme, the Scheme for Economic Empowerment for Denotified Nomadic and Semi-Nomadic Tribes, which is an intervention for these communities which were once branded as criminal tribes under colonial law and have since lived on the margins. The SEED scheme also provides education support, health coverage, housing, and livelihoods. This initiative marks a long awaited step towards justice, dignity, and inclusion for these communities. Another of the department's initiative is the Venture Capital Fund, a very, very transformative intervention, turning job seekers into job creators, which actualizes the vision of going beyond employment towards entrepreneurship and self reliance. So, till now, more than 124 companies, youngsters, have been assisted, and 478 crores sanctioned under the VCF. We have also got success stories through these interventions. However, we must acknowledge the issues and challenges that persist. The lack of awareness and outreach gaps leave many potential beneficiaries still uninformed about available schemes and entitlements. Last mile delivery remains uneven, especially in remote areas. Capacity constraints at the local levels affect implementation quality. Then, of course, the problem of getting good data, the absence of real-time data, real-time disaggregated data, hinder policy and intervention planning, and of course the need for convergence with all the other stakeholders, as even in the government. So, what is the way forward? I think it is not just, I mean, wherever we have seen success, we've seen that, yes, the community needs to be involved. The partnership of the NGOs, the partnership with the local stakeholders, the partnership with industry, that is extremely important. to scale livelihoods sustainable, we must shift from a government-centric to a whole of society approach. The private sector, the civil society, the philanthropies must become partners in this national mission. In closing, I would say that the challenge before is big, is still very huge. But with the right partnerships and continued commitment, we can build an India where every citizen, regardless of caste, gender, ability, or circumstance, has the opportunity to live with dignity and economic independence. So I invite all of you, NGOs, private enterprise, philanthropies, citizens, to join hands with the government of India in this mission. Together, let us build a truly inclusive India, one where every life has the opportunity to flourish. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for talking to us about the power of working together, the power of leveraging markets, the power of collaboration. Thank you for talking about the government's interventions and schemes that are there that provide a multi-pronged strategy to address the challenges that these vulnerable communities face. The impact of the Department of Social Justice and Empowerment and the numbers are truly impressive. The SMILE initiative focusing on persons engaged in begging and transgenders, and the initiatives empowering nomadic, semi-nomadic communities, sanitation workers is very heartening to know. The implementation challenges would exist, however, but we are hopeful that they can be solved for too. Thank you so much. Next up is the panel on emerging opportunities in creating sustainable livelihoods for underserved communities. This session is co-hosted by DBS. Before we start this session, I want to just mention that Caralyn Khongwar, head for the DBS Foundation, who was earlier part of this panel, couldn't join and has a video message for the audience. So we'll first play the video message. Can I please request for the video message from Caralyn to be played?
Namaste, please, everyone. It's a pity I am unable to join you in person at Charcha 2025. However, it's truly a privilege to connect with you, if not in person, at least through this message. On behalf of all of us at the DBS Foundation, we are delighted to partner with Charcha to co-host the Inclusion Track. This is a meaningful platform that brings together an extraordinary ecosystem of change makers from various sectors, from the government, businesses, civil society, and the social sector. Together, we share a common purpose: to build a more inclusive, resilient, and sustainable future. At the DBS Foundation, we believe that businesses can and should be a force for good. In fact, at DBS, we believe that businesses can do well by doing good. The DBS Foundation was formed in 2014, and we have since committed over 180 million Singapore dollars to less fortunate communities, social enterprises, and businesses for impact, SMEs, across Asia to create impact beyond banking, beyond borders, and beyond generations. We have had the privilege to work with and be inspired by over 160 businesses for impact and almost 50 impact program partners. Together, we have uplifted the lives and livelihoods of millions across the region. In India, our work focuses on two areas that are deeply interconnected: providing essential needs such as nutrition, access to healthcare and basic education, as well as fostering financial inclusion, digital literacy, by enabling individuals to participate fully in the economy through entrepreneurship, access to livelihoods, financial and digital literacy. The focus on livelihoods is especially close to our hearts. Livelihoods are a pathway to dignity, empowerment, and long-term well-being. When people have the opportunity to earn, learn, and grow, they build stronger families, communities, and ultimately strengthen societies. Through our partnerships, we are working to build sustainable and inclusive models that create systemic change so that one cycle ends and another brighter one can begin. With the Nudge Institute, we are empowering 85,000 ultra-poor households to help them break out of poverty through an economic empowerment and poverty alleviation program. With Hakdak Sharp, we are strengthening financial and digital literacy and broadening access to government welfare entitlements for over 500,000 people, mostly women. Together, these programs are creating pathways to financial security for people who need it most. We are also working with Sampak Foundation to strengthen foundational learning for more children in government schools. Across our programs, we expect to reach 3.5 million individuals in India over the next 5 years. I'm especially looking forward to the discussion on emerging opportunities in creating sustainable livelihoods for low-income communities. Our panelists, Aniket Doga from Hak Priyan Anand from Life Circle, and Vinit Sayarwala from Atypical Advantage are remarkable individuals and wonderful case studies of how innovation and inclusion can transform lives, and they are all DBS Foundation partners. Needless to say, we are humbled to partner with them on their respective journeys. Life Circle, for instance, an inaugural DBS Foundation Impact Beyond Award winner, is addressing the critical need for quality elder care in India through a tech-enabled model that connects trained caregivers with families. As India's aging population grows, such innovations will play a vital role in ensuring that more people can age with dignity, purpose, and joy. At the DBS Foundation, our life stage approach begins with preparing early and building resilience, continues through financial and digital empowerment into adulthood, and extends into later life through initiatives that support health, connection, and care. Last but not least, I encourage all of you here today to learn more about the DBS Foundation Impact Beyond Award. We're into our second year this year. The Impact Beyond Award 2025 calls for innovative, inclusive, and businesses that are looking to scale, to prepare us not only to live longer, but to live better, from the way we live and work to how we prepare ourselves financially, physically, mentally, and socially. This award aims to unearth and support innovative businesses that are addressing the growing problem of aging societies, awarding up to a total of 3 million Singapore dollars in prize money to these innovative businesses. As we look ahead, let us continue to collaborate and create solutions that can lift communities and strengthen our shared future. I hope today's discussions spark new ideas and partnerships that will bring us closer to helping to make society more equitable and inclusive. Thank you so much for all that you do to turn this vision into reality, and I hope I can see you next year. Thank you.
Big thank you to Karen for that wonderful video message. So Karen spoke about the Impact Beyond Awards. So the DBS Foundation Impact Beyond Award 2025 is accepting applications from visionary businesses that are helping to reimagine what it means to age well in today's world. With a prize money of up to SGD or Singapore dollar 1 million, as well as access to mentorship from DBS management and other business leaders, this award seeks to support innovative, inclusive, and scalable solutions addressing the needs and untapped potential of aging societies. For more information, please visit the DBS Foundation website. We want to now play you a short video on the Impact Beyond Awards, and then we'll proceed to the panel. That was the video. Okay, I thought there was more. So I now call upon the panelists for today's discussion, which is on emerging opportunities in creating sustainable livelihoods for underserved populations. The panelists are Aniket Dogar, co-founder and CEO, Hak Darshak. First one. Priya Anand, co-founder and chief customer officer, Life Circle. Vinit Saraiwala, founder and CEO, Atypical Advantage. And we have today's moderator, Atul Satija, founder and CEO, the Nudge Institute. Thank you so much. Over to you, Atul.
Thank you. And welcome to all of you. We have a very fascinating topic, something that's very, very close to my heart. Obviously, we do a lot of work in that space at the Nudge as well. But we have only 35 minutes. So we'll dive straight in. The topic is emerging opportunities in how we can build sustainable livelihoods in low-income settings. And Caralyn ma'am has already set the stage on how sort of social justice in society needs a lot more work, but there are a lot of interesting things that government has done, markets have done, non-profits have done. Let me start by something that sort of has troubled me for a while. In the livelihood space, unlike in education and health, there are very, very few things that have a lot of evidence of that they are working on the ground. In health, there are a lot of examples. In education, there are a lot of evidence available on the models that work. In livelihoods, there are very few things that have shown to be working on the ground, enough evidence. There is obviously poverty graduation approach that we do at the Nudge that has very good evidence. There is Agri advisory for smallholder farmers that seems to be working. There is eyeglasses for livelihoods that seems to be working, has a lot of evidence surprisingly. But one of the other things that has a lot of evidence in livelihoods in low income settings that really works is cash transfers, benefit transfers, social protection more broadly. And India is at a stage where we are seeing insane amount of capital going into social protection, whether it's based on the election promises, whether it's coming from desire to actually create on-ground models. Give Directly has spent $1 billion doing it. And Aniket, you have taken a very, very interesting play in that. We'll start with you. You're actually not doing cash transfers or providing social protection, but you're working with the system to provide social protection better for the ones who themselves will not be able to get it. So talk a little bit about what has been your big learnings on when does social protection really work? What does it really do? And what enabling conditions have you seen required for people to not be excluded from these benefits?
Well, thank you, Atul. I think what we are really seeing in the last 10 years of our work, that there are 4 stages for a citizen, a small business, or any kind of individual to get access to social protection or government schemes. It starts from discovery. The discovery in itself isn't there, so the person doesn't know what is out there. It's like saying that we all know health insurance exists, but there are millions out there who don't even know health insurance. What is health insurance? So the first stage is discovery. The second stage then is, after discovery, am I eligible? Because in India, there is multiple eligibility criteria, basis caste, income, religion, domicile, and multiple other factors. Like when we started the scheme research about 12 years back, we found that there are theoretically 20,000 government schemes. We have on our platform 7,000. There are about 1,000 active government schemes, center and state combined. And people don't know what you are eligible for. So the first stage is discovery, then eligibility, then comes application. In the application layer is the place where then we need the most enabling environment, because there the problem is not the scheme application, the problem is documentation. If you want a person to get health insurance, you need to first, government will give the health insurance. Because if your name is there, government will give you PM Kisan. But to get on that list, you need an OBC certificate, SC certificate, ST certificate, income certificate, if you're disabled, if you're from a particular domicile. So multiple documents. And that documentation is an year-on-year process. So a girl child today has to go and submit their documents every year for scholarship. So people are finding schemes, schemes are not finding people. Ideally, a government scheme should find people with all the technology, with all the registries that we have. So that on the ground, and our country is so vast and diverse. We are talking about, in a small region of Uttar Pradesh, Bihar and Jharkhand combined, 412 million people. The entire North American population is 380 million people. So, that's the diversity. We can talk any numbers. I would like to believe our team, not me. Our team, the work they do, backbreaking work, we've still reached 8 million people. 8 million people is West Delhi, right? So, that is how do we reach then the like, meaningful scale. How do we enable that? That becomes a big question. How do we, and also I think the last part, the discovery, eligibility, application, the last part is our redressal. So the DEAR framework. And redressal in our mind is when people are meaningfully able to use government schemes. So again, coming back to the example of health insurance, as per the government, there are 50 crore people on Ayushman Bharat. That's just the central government scheme. There are state schemes as well. Largest health insurance program. The challenge is when a rickshaw driver or a street vendor has Ayushman Bharat outside in Delhi, they do not know at the time of need which hospital to go to. Because there is a gap today, which is also an innovative gap for entrepreneurs to build, which is which hospital has the empty beds. Otherwise, that same person will end up in Ram Manohar Lohia and AIIMS. They won't be able to go to that nearest private hospital where the empty beds are and they are supposed to get it. So how do you then service people on social security? And that is technology, that is also mindset, that is culture, that is that thinking that these are not freebies, which becomes a Twitter conversation, that we as taxpayers pay for these people. I think if people are able to get better healthcare, better pension, it's going to uplift the entire economy. So those are both the challenges, the enabling environments, but also the opportunity, because I feel there is so much innovation required in this space. There is so much potential entrepreneurship required in this space. We know we've made a lot of mistakes and are making and learning, and I think there is an opportunity for people to come and plug those gaps.
It's quite incredible that you mentioned that you have like 8 million people on the Haq Darshak platform that you're helping get access to all these social entitlements, etc. That's 3 New Zealands, by the way. That's huge. And I loved what you said, that schemes are not finding people, people are finding schemes. And that's a huge thing for a country to fix. Not that it's only government's responsibility, but there is so much opportunity in this inefficiency of government provisioning huge amount of benefits and people eligible for it but not getting when they need it, and that inefficiency itself could be hundreds of millions of lives being better if we fix that. So thanks for that. Let me, you briefly talked about the universal health coverage, so I'll move to Priya. Priya, you work in the caregiving space with elderly, with seniors, at home, etc. And it's a very hard space to crack. We have seen that Portia has been trying to work in this space. You have tried to work in this space. Many other people are trying in this. And India obviously has universal health coverage now, and there are obviously, it's a very, very large program or scheme. But I had no clue that, we as a country celebrate our demographic dividend. But I didn't know that India will be 17% of the world's elderly by 2050. It is that large an aging population. For that scale of seniors that we will have as a country, because we are moving towards nuclear families, people are moving to cities for their careers and opportunities, parents are left behind in smaller towns, villages, etc. They won't have caregivers. And if we don't find the infrastructure across the country to have actual caregiving being available, especially at home, not just in hospitals, as a country, we will actually be doing disservice to the generation before us. So one, can you talk a little bit more about this sort of challenge in general demographically, and a little bit about how you have seen the challenges in this space? Because a lot of models have been tried, but it is very hard work. So just share some stories of the work you've seen on the ground.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Atul. So I think in terms of aging, we were at a life expectancy at birth of 32 when we got independent. From there, we have reached a life expectancy of 70.1. So I think it's an incredible achievement, and we have worked as a country, we have worked very hard to get here. So this is a desired place we are standing. So now that out of the way, what is the problem? The problem is not as much of 17% of the population or 319 million seniors being there by 2050. When you think about seniors, anybody above 60 is defined as a senior in the Indian context. Now, when you look at seniors, I think they are not a uniform whole. There are depending upon whether you are a young old, older old, or oldest old, the kind of requirement changes significantly. Because when you're talking about young old, say roughly the 60 to 70-year-old age group, we are not even talking about significant care requirements at all, at least in urban middle-class India is what I am talking about right now. So one is to understand that the maximum requirement of care comes when we get to the oldest old. And because of the health benefits and economic progress, we are seeing significant percentage of people who are living longer. Now, what does that do to us as homes and communities? It presents us with problems that we have not seen around us. Dementia, for example. It's a progressive condition which increases, the probability of which increases with age. We haven't seen, our grandparents, for example, haven't lived long enough for us to see our parents care for them. So we're completely overwhelmed when there is a family member who has dementia and we do not know how the disease progresses. We do not know what to do. We do not know if something is a disease or if the person, it's something that the person is doing, right? So I think that is the second part. A third part is that when we look at, I think we can't look at the country as a whole when we talk about the response, because we will age differently depending upon the population, the structure of our replacement fertility rate, how quickly we have reached our replacement fertility rate. So we are seeing that the southern states are aging faster than the northern states and the eastern states. So the southern states will be the first ones to have a larger percentage of population who are senior. Now, I'll quickly cut to a story. I think it's a personal story of how we got into caregiving. My mother-in-law was slated to undergo a knee replacement surgery. The doctor said that she would walk in on the third day, and she would be perfectly okay in 2 weeks. But what happened following that is that she had to be hospitalized. She acquired healthcare-acquired infection. She had to be in the ICU for close to a month. And when she came home into a joint family with 2 sons, their wives and children, we found that she was bedridden. And then, despite being a joint family with domestic help available, we saw that her care overwhelmed us. And the subsequent months and years saw us facing a few problems. One is in terms of what it did to the lives of the women in the family. So they had, I think it wasn't said or asked by anybody, but women naturally make those choices of stepping down or reorganizing their work. It affected the way they related with their children. It affected their availability of free time, and all this also causes anxiety to the senior person in picture. And we also saw the other side of who was providing care. So every time we went to an agency, I'm talking about around 2012, we went to an agency, we would get a person, not that you don't get a person, but the person, when the person comes, don't talk about what is the skill of the person. Also in terms of what the person received, even if the person did a good job, was cheated, don't talk about a contract, right? So the caregiver was on the receiving end. So I think what we are looking at, if you step back and look at it not as an individual problem, we understood that it's a problem that the country is going to face. It's not just a personal problem. So in my mind, I think 2 big pieces that I would think of to prepare ourselves is recognizing care as a soft infrastructure for economic growth. I think that's very central, because care has to be an all of country, all of government kind of a mandate. It cannot be handled in a piecemeal manner. And flowing from that comes the need to build systems, building care systems. And why I say care systems is because we need to look at the problem at a macro level, and if we need to solve it for the large population, we need to understand the problem from a macro level. And I'll just state an example of the Bogota care block, which is a very respected kind of model that exists for care. It's a mayor-led model which looked at the population of the country, about 8 million, and saw significant chronic illnesses among women, time poverty. 30% of the women face time poverty, 70% below primary school, and about 90% were below the poverty line. So they decided that, if you don't create care systems, the state will not be able to progress. So what they did is very interesting. They created this public-private model by which women could actually come into a central place, drop off their children, would continue their education. There was a washer where they could put their clothes. There was a place where they could learn skills. So in an integrated, complex kind of a format. So I think some of those models, so we need to think about what are those care systems we need to build.
I think one of the things I recently learned is that as a region, we'll get to about 800 million elderly people in the next 15, 20 years. And like India will add another 100 million people to our elderly, and we are not ready. And unlike many other countries, the good thing about India is that we are getting richer at the same rate as we are getting older. So as a country, we will have the resources to support our elderly. The question is, do we choose to? And do we actually make that health infrastructure, care infrastructure actually be available everywhere? So I hope that, through policy, through nonprofits, through markets, we are able to make this infrastructure and make it happen. Vineet will change gears and come to you. Is the mic. Let's talk about inclusion, Vineet. You have spent and dedicated your life to doing a lot of work on inclusion for people with disability. But let me start by asking you, what are the barriers you have seen? We have seen that there are examples being shown that, Lemon Tree is starting to hire people with disability and they become a role model. We see Mitti Cafe has done a really incredible job. Your work is very inspiring, creating platform for people with disability from a variety of different backgrounds to put their products and services up there, etc. But what are the barriers for seeing it mainstreamed across regular workplaces where people think of it as a responsibility to attend to this problem that job opportunity should be more equitable for everyone? But we are not seeing that happen at the pace at which we should.
No, I completely agree because, I was in retail and we had close to 500 plus people with disabilities. So some of the examples also which you have quoted are incredible, but, people don't have very high expectation from people with disabilities. I remember, so me and my brother both were blind, and when we were, and we had the grades, we entered a good college. And when we were interviewing, all of these CXOs could not believe that, a 100% blind person can do investment banking or marketing. I still remember, a lot of them, in spite of the grades, rejected. My brother eventually became an investment banker. I joined a retail firm. And same way for deaf people, when we started working, everybody wanted to, provide them back-end job like a warehouse and so many of these things. And again, same way for people with locomotor disability. Everyone was very fine as long as, they can hire them in entry level. And pretty much no one is even talking about, let's say, autism or Down syndrome. And we just wanted to flip the script and see what happens. I remember so we told companies that, hey, why can't people with hearing disability operate some of the most complex machines? And very proud to share, so today people with hearing disabilities are making chips for India's the first investment in the manufacturing semiconductor piece. People with disabilities are also contributing to making turbines. They're making defense vehicle in engine assembly with Tata Motors as such. So, deaf people could do much more if given the opportunity. Same way for blind people. As such. And I remember how many of you here would like to give your babies to a girl with Down syndrome. When we asked all the corporate crash that, hey, we have a person with Down syndrome and she would like to take care of babies, because you would see a lot of people with Down syndrome have the love and the warmth. No one believed that this is possible. Luckily, there was a corporate crash who believed in us, and then she's working there, and pretty much the same parents who said that we don't want a person with Down syndrome to take care of our babies call when she's absent for even a day. Same way, people on the spectrum are taking in a pet boarding institute, taking care of pets. So some of these roles and these conversations need to change. Because we can't always bucket people with disability saying that, hey, because you're a person with disability, you can only do a menial job. They can actually become CXOs of companies. and there are gaps in the skilling space, the educational landscape, and that is why this thing happens. So the corporate mindset of certain jobs, certain roles being reserved or being for people with disabilities is actually wrong. If you just take a strength-based approach, saying that, like, if you tell me to do shooting, I would obviously not be able to get a gold medal like Avinav Bindra. But again, there are so many other roles which I could do as such. So let's focus on what that strength of that individual is, and not always think from that lens of sympathy. Treat them as the same way, have the same expectation of productivity, but try to invest in skilling. A lot of companies don't realize, like, a person, let's say, coming from a rural background, they can't master English in 3 months or a 6 months period. If there has been a systematic marginalization for a decade, it would take some time. So that is something which I think a lot of companies need to understand, and just raise this bar on how some of these examples which we were able to do, wish more companies come forward and give some of those toughest roles and trying to make that work. Yeah.
Lovely. Vineet, I want to come back to you and ask a question, but we have 14 minutes left, and do want to open it up for questions, guys. So please raise your hands if you have any in a minute. But Vineet, also touch upon a little bit on, other than the social behavior, awareness, mindset change that you are saying people should have to look at it with a strengths-based approach. What are the other barriers that you think we can work on to remove to make it easier for the ecosystem to be more inclusive by design?
Yeah. So I'll be as quick as possible. So when a child is born, forget a person with or without disability, there has been no screening. If our screening could be better, a lot of people with disabilities, the quality of life could improve, right, with a cochlear implant. And in a lot of cases, parents fail to even accept that their child is having some issues, and that they realize quite later. So first, this life cycle, and even if you look at so many Western countries, post-marriage, there has been a screening, right, that if a child could be a person with thalassemia or not. So I think this needs to be fixed up. And then, let's say, when the child moves to a school, we already have the law in place. The new education policy, I think, prevents any discrimination. So a person with disability can actually study in a mainstream school, like how I have studied in IIM Bangalore, without any challenges. But what happens is, school principal would deny admission. Hey, you are blind, go to a blind school. Or you are deaf, go to a deaf school. That should not happen. Real inclusion will only happen if they study in the same school as anybody else. So, and then again, moving to physical infrastructure, I think here India is obviously changing, but I think RAMs would help India's aging society also, people with disabilities also, pregnant women also, young kids also, children also. So I think physical infrastructure, making it accessible, has so many benefits. So if we fix up all of this, which is our education and the early screening, first of all, the burden on this country would reduce by at least half, and people would be more aware about their condition. And then again comes to corporate jobs or government jobs. There is already a reservation in place, but funnily, if you look at India's top colleges, though there is a 5% reservation for people with disabilities, you'll hardly find 1% of that getting filled. So that's a huge problem. And if we can probably solve for this life and education issue, a lot of these things can simply go down, and people with disabilities would be mainstreamed in a way like they can actually rise to the pretty top. So just fixing their 0 to 15 years, I think, would solve the next 50-year issue for them. So that's how I look at eliminating these barriers.
Lovely. Thank you. Thank you so much, Vineet. I'll straight away open for questions and come back for the next round of panel comments as well. Anyone here has any question?
Once again. We can also have the QR code on, if that's okay, and people can type out their questions.
If there is a mic, we can just do a quick round, because I have one more.
Yeah,
there's a
sure.
question here. Can we have a mic there, please? And there's one there behind after that, yeah.
Hi, thank you. Finally, I could see some discussion on elder care. So, we are Harsh from Sarthak Prayas. We run an old age home in Delhi. And from years, we are talking about that how caregiving becoming difficult, and it's really, really impossible to get quality manpower. Your organization is doing something to provide caregivers to NGOs also, because there they require to give services to multiple bedridden patients, unlikely to a middle class family where you just provide service to one person, and they're required to give only for 90 minutes to 120 minutes, and for rest of the day they usually do Instagramming and YouTube. That's why they don't want to work for community old age homes which are providing free of cost. So any thoughts on this? How are you finding takers on this? Thank you.
I think workforce challenges, it can run a full day long conversation. So retention is a very big problem, and nobody wants to become a caregiver. No youngster. If you're talking about 19 to 22-year-olds, it's a very hard job. Let's accept that. It's a very hard job for a youngster. So question is on, how do you ensure, what are you offering to the young person? So you cannot imagine that a person would be caregiver for life, right? So what is the career progression? What is the social progression? What is the economic, educational progression that you're offering? And I think that's an important question. But right now, in terms of your question, sir, we are providing, large part of our services are to families and upper middle and higher income families, because it is completely paid for.
I thought so.
It is out of pocket, which is which means that we are only able to provide the service to a certain segment of the community. But what we've created over a period of time is the technological ability to actually provide good quality services using technology in a dispersed care context. And we also encourage homes who want caregivers. We have a couple of them to reach out to us, and we support homes that require caregivers. In fact, caregiver retention is better in community homes versus in private homes.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank you. There's one question there.
हेलो सर, मेरा एक क्वेश्चन है अनिकेत सर के लिए. That we understand, India में we have about 7 to 8 millions of ultra poor households, and the objective that you have at Haq Darshak, enabling the ecosystem to give benefits to the poorest of the poor families. If we have to ensure that poverty is eliminated by 2047, what are the approaches that you are trying to help these ultra poor households? Because कोई भी इंश्योरेंस को या कोई भी हेल्थ बेनिफिट्स, इफ द हाउसहोल्ड्स आर एंटाइटल्ड फॉर, अगर उनको एक्सेस करना है तो दे नीड टू हैव सम प्रॉपर डॉक्यूमेंट्स लाइक यू हैव पॉइंटेड आउट, राइट? तो सपोर्टिंग डॉक्यूमेंट्स चाहिए होगा, बट अल्ट्रा पोर हाउसहोल्ड्स सर्टेनली दे डू नॉट हैव एक्सेस टू दोज डॉक्यूमेंट्स. तो उसमें आप कैसे इंटीग्रेट करते हैं एंड हाउ डू यू प्लान फॉर दैट?
नहीं, आई थिंक जैसे आपने अपने सवाल में ही एक तरह से जवाब दिया कि सबसे ज़्यादा टफ ही डॉक्यूमेंटेशन है. Documentation is the most tough. Unfortunately, the poorer you are and the more marginalized you are, the more you have to prove you are poor and marginalized. So the more IDs are added, more registries are added. So documentation, saturation is one. Then of course there are programs like ultra poor programs and others jahan pe there is work happening on alleviating poverty. We are, I think one is a documentation layer, then there is a social security layer and social protection जिसमें इंश्योरेंस है. बट आपने ये भी बिल्कुल सही कहा कि बहुत सारी इंश्योरेंस जहाँ पे प्रीमियम देना है. एक तो आयुष्मान भारत है वो, और बाकी आपकी लाइफ इंश्योरेंस एंड एक्सीडेंट इंश्योरेंस है, बट उसमें एक छोटा प्रीमियम है जो आपका ऑटो डेबिट होता है. तो प्रॉब्लम ये है कि सिटीजन्स उतना ऑटो डेबिट पे भी पैसा नहीं रखते हैं, राइट? दैट लिटरेसी, डिजिटल फाइनेंशियल लिटरेसी इज़ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. लाइक अटल पेंशन योजना इज़ अ फैंटास्टिक पेंशन स्कीम, पर उसमें 12 रुपये आपको रखने पड़ेंगे. अगर आपने वो ऑटो डेबिट नहीं रखा तो आपके 12 रुपये तो आपकी कैंसिल हो जाएगी. तो अब ये जो है ये पैरेलल इकोसिस्टम को काम करना पड़ेगा. अगर आपके साथ, अगर आप एक MSME और अपने 2 वर्कर्स को इसके बारे में बताते हैं, या इफ़ यू आर टेलिंग दिस अबाउट योर डोमेस्टिक वर्कर्स, टेलिंग दिस टू अबाउट योर ड्राइवर्स, ये लिटरेसी बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. गवर्नमेंट प्रोग्राम्स हैं, एंड ऑफ कोर्स देन government is doing, I mean, more and more. We are now one of the, I mean, the largest probably cash transfer country in the world in terms of volume. जहाँ पे हम state wise, चाहे वो election के पास ही हो, but at least we are doing a lot of cash transfers at state and central, and I think that is also going in the right direction, because that adds unconditional cash transfers. Say more and more families can use that income for different things. So I think ये combination है. पर आई एग्री, आई थिंक जो आपने बोला कि डॉक्यूमेंटेशन को सॉल्व करना और हम डॉक्यूमेंटेशन सॉल्व कर सकते हैं, बिकॉज इन दिस रूम व्हेन यू आर इन द लास्ट फ्यू ईयर्स व्हेन वी हैव ट्राइड टू सॉल्व फॉर वीज़ा और पासपोर्ट और टैक्सेस, आज हमारा टैक्स रिफंड 7 दिन में आ जाता है. वो इसलिए क्योंकि नहीं आएगा तो हम ट्विटर पे कंप्लेंट कर देंगे. पासपोर्ट सर्विस TCS मैनेज करता है, टैक्स सिस्टम इन्फोसिस मैनेज करता है, पर कास्ट सर्टिफिकेट नहीं करता है. ये कास्ट सर्टिफिकेट के लिए 15 दिन लगेंगे.
So Aniket, on that, can you also briefly touch upon the role of technology and this huge potential with AI in social entitlement access?
No, I
How
think,
are you thinking about it from your...
So I think one is the discoverability itself. So there are discovery engines, and now with AI coming in, we can use discovery using your profile in local languages, discovery eligibility. In the application space, there are already some open APIs, but the more APIs are made open to the larger ecosystem. Like today, PAN card you can apply online, right? Aadhaar has just launched its new website. But there are a lot of government schemes and departments where in terms of digitization, you still have a website where you download the form, upload the form. So technically, I think we are there as a country, because we have solved for payments in a fragmented market in the last 10 years. I think we can solve for schemes. And AI is going to be really productive. Like, to give you one example, in the government today, we built a bot. Like a lot of us have or are building. But what happens is a citizen can search for government schemes, apply. Government today doesn't allow a bot to go to a website. That is not allowed. So citizens still have to go to the government website. And then there are guardrails that should be made. If we can work on those guardrails together, that agentic AI can suddenly increase the volume of applications or correct applications. So some of this work with AI can help.
I think governments are actually quite progressive in India, in the sense that Adalat AI, I learned that Kerala government is the first state government anywhere in the world to approve an AI system in courtrooms for all their cases, which is quite incredible. So yeah, I hope that governments open up the space to have more technology come into entitlement access. There are a few more questions here. I'll go to Ekta and then I'll come here.
So Aniket, sorry putting you on the spot again, but we've been working together with you on the health insurance piece. So I've got 2 questions. One is that it's not enough to just give the Ayushman card, right? You rightly pointed out, how does that person actually get the benefit of the hospital? And what is it that you or any other players in the market that are doing to enable that visibility? Which are the hospitals that are there in the vicinity? How do you get access to them? Even we as individuals sometimes get intimidated by some of the things that we've never accessed, as to how do we access it. So I can only imagine what it is for the marginalized. The second part of my question is that once you are in that list of 50 crores that is eligible for Ayushman, you're obviously eligible for a lot of other things as well, right? From scholarships to skilling programs. So how does Hagdarshak work to ensure that convergence, or is there any work happening on that convergence? Because ideally, if you ask me, we should have cracked this many years back, that if you've got one scheme, you're eligible for 10 others because of your profile. So how does that work?
I'm hoping that all of us will be around for further conversation, given we have only 2 minutes. And you can keep it to less than a minute.
No, I think the work we have done with denotified tribes in Maharashtra, with, for example, the Ayushman Bharat, I think the ID in itself was a challenge that we worked. You're right. I think interoperability of IDs is a must. In certain areas we can, and in certain areas now with consent and OTP, so again it is technically possible. As Hagdarshak, we have not been able to go the next step yet of how people are using Ayushman. We have done about 100,000 surveys in understanding what the challenge is. But I think there is scope of collaboration, partnership, and innovation in now working with a billion people almost who are on different social security programs, for more entrepreneurs to potentially come in and partner and collaborate and seeing how they can use it. There, I think we have to do a lot more. And I think, but interoperability, you're absolutely right. That's technically possible, and that is something that can be done.
Thank you. There's a question there. Actually, there are 2 hands that have been up for a while. Yes. The mic is right behind you.
First of all, thank you to the panel for great insights. I'll keep it very quick. I have 2 questions in the elderly space. How do you see convergence happening so that an ecosystem is built? And the second question is completely long term. How do you see elderly space evolving so that they get into the workforce and productivity increase, so that you were talking about the poverty of time that also goes down and overall the family is uplifted?
Well, in the spirit of poverty of time, right here as well, can you take any one of these and respond in 20 seconds, Priya?
I think I'll take the elder question. So I think the first question was on convergence. Okay, so convergence is a fairly straightforward answer in my mind. All of us have heard of the National Polio Eradication Program. I think it is one place where we actually demonstrated, and with evidence, right, that we can do it. And it was all of government, all of community programs. So I think that's the way to do it. And the second question, I think there are models, very interesting models in Singapore, for example, where you're looking at the entire elder population and you're segmenting them from 60 right up to whatever age, right? And then you're engaging the younger olds to actually serve the older olds. But that requires an entire agency called the Agency for Integrated Care. So which is why I believe that there has to be an anchor agency which is looking at many of these aspects related to elders just beyond the health. So I think there needs to be deliberate, focused action there. Thank you.
Awesome. Our time is up, but I want to request Vineet to spend a minute, Vineet, on if you were to talk about like one big priority area that you are trying to work on through your organization and beyond, what would that be to make sure that we are inclusive in design as a society, as businesses, as workplace, as homes?
So what we are doing big right now is skilling. What we have realized is without skilling of people with disabilities, we'll not be able to put them into the Indian workforce. So like, for example, we are promoting English for deaf people more than, let's say, sign language, because we think English gives them better paying opportunities. Same way for blind people, we are trying to skill them into advanced Excel as such. And I think a problem which I already mentioned, that India's colleges are having less number of people with disabilities. So how we could use reservations and train them so that they enter India's colleges. So that's something which we are just starting to work upon.
Awesome. With that, we'll wrap up the session right now, but lovely insights from all of you on how we can take our 8 million access points that you have to another 100 million people who need it, solve for our care systems, as well as be inclusive. Thank you so much. Thank you.